So today we're going to take a walk around the historic Hadley Common, the largest common, I think, that still exists in the Northeast, certainly Western Massachusetts. And we're going to investigate Old Hadley, the old community known as Hadley. And Hadley was based on the great Connecticut River. That was the river that allowed the English up from Long Island Sound, extending their reach west from the settlements in Plymouth and Boston. They came up in 1635 and established Springfield. The founder of Springfield, a gentleman named William Pynchon, decided that the only way that he could have a successful colony would be to maintain good relations with the native people. And thus, he sent traders, led by himself, to visit the native people here, the Norwottuck, and on the other side of the river, right around the corner where the river makes a big sharp turn, the Nonotuck. These two tribal peoples are part of a larger group that we like to call the river tribes. But just up above that bend in the river, there's another big bend as the Connecticut River meanders as it gets down into this part of its drainage. And that next big meander is where the Norwottuck village was at the time Pynchon and his gang came up here. Now the river makes a big sweep and it goes around another massive meander, and then way down where you can see the mountain, the river comes back around and then continues south, meaning that we're standing on a gigantic peninsula that's facing west. And here, from where we're standing, all the way down to where the river comes back again, the villagers at Hadley establish their town common. And you can see it. This is a massive common. You can see the cars way out in the distance on what we call Route 9. If you like old New England architecture, this is a really nice place to come. You can see on the other side of the road two beautiful examples of what we call valley doors. And those are those doors that the Puritans who settled here put on the front of their otherwise plain houses to dress them up a little bit and show the status that they had attained through the grace of God. Remember, the Puritans believe that God manifests his love and affection to us in this world through his bounty. Meaning, if your soul is a good one, you're born healthy and strong and attractive, you don't have bad eyes or bad breath, you have good looks, and of course you're going to be more likely to establish worldly wealth as a sign of his blessing. You are, in fact, what they call the elect. And in the meeting house, your pew, your family's pew, would be up in the front. The elect of the community would be closest to the minister, closest to the interpreter of God's law in the community. This community was established by settlers who had gone with Thomas Hooker to Hartford and Wethersfield. Now, Wethersfield was established by John Oldham, who was a stranger on the Mayflower, meaning he wasn't a conformist. And a whole bunch of the people that came with him from the Boston settlements wanted to get away from that stodgy Puritanism that they found out there. They came out and established Wethersfield while Thomas Hooker was establishing Hartford and pretty much taking it from the Dutch. Hooker was a guy who wanted to make Connecticut more holy than the Puritans had made Boston, which must have been pretty obnoxious. And here we are at the site of the meeting house here in Hadley. Site of the first meeting house, built in 1670. Originally, they would have met in the minister's house, which is down another quarter mile right on the edge of Route 9. But that minister is a guy named John Russell. And he had some problems with Thomas Hooker, leading him to lead two groups of settlers, one from Hartford and one from Wethersfield, here to Hadley, so they could do it their way. We always think about Puritan conformity, but when you start purifying the Bible based on your own lights, you open up a real can of worms. Now, right on the corner up here, you can see a white house. It's now some sort of business. I don't know what it is. But that's the site of Russell's first home, the minister's first home, and who lived side by side for 20 years with the Norwottuck and the Nonotuck on the west side of the river, growing corn, maize, pasturing livestock, trading fur, doing the things that you had to do to survive. And life wasn't easy. It was a longer winter then, with more snow, and something to be said for the perseverance of the early English colonists who came up the river. And as far as theft of land, Pynchon here in the valley, and his son John even, made sure to do it right. When I say do it right, I'm not talking about thieving, although you might consider it thieving. They made sure they drew up solid deeds when they used some sort of currency or some sort of trade good that they were going to exchange with the native people for the right to settle. They made sure that it was quality stuff and that the native people would be happy in the end. In 1995, the Hadley Historical Commission put up this monument on this rock that was minding its own business, but they nailed a hunk of brass to it, and you'll notice what they've written. 17th Century Palisade. In 1676, this common and most of its buildings were surrounded by a palisade built of split logs at least 3 fingers thick and 8 feet high. This fortification was 1 mile long by 40 rods wide. Hadley was then a frontier outpost which felt threatened by native attack. Notice, felt threatened by native attack. In 1676, there was a war going on, and we got a view of the palisade, the palisado, as they would have written it, with the meeting house in the center and the people's homes on the sides, and their farm fields would have extended out on the opposite side. But during the what you could call siege of Hadley, from September 1675 through the summer of 1676, they would have tried to scratch by with what they could grow on the common ground, as they called it. I always laughed about that. They felt threatened. There was a war going on, and they were attacked 2 and probably 3 times during that time. But whoever put this up couldn't even say that. Were it not for this palisado, Hadley as a village would have been destroyed by the Norwottuck, which had, as a tribe, taken up the tomahawk and joined Metacom, or King Philip, to basically settle grievances that were long-standing against the English. And that palisado, or palisade, saved the life of the colony, or saved the community from destruction.